Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on enabling zero trust principles within DevSecOps. My name is Shua, and I'm the Senior Manager Product Marketing for Progress Chef. I also have Kurt Young with me, who is a Principal Solutions Engineer. So let's quickly move on to the agenda for today's discussion. So I'll touch upon the foundations of DevSecOps and what are some of the challenges that organizations face in adopting a DevSecOps approach, how a policy as code approach comes into play. Then Kurt will touch upon zero trust, the synergy between zero trust and DevSecOps, and how Progress Chef helps you in your zero trust approach. We can finally wrap it up with Q&A. So I'm sure most of you in the call must be quite familiar with what DevSecOps is, and some of you would have already been implementing DevSecOps concepts in your workflows. So the DevOps movement kind of started around 2008, and it no doubt makes software development faster. But without proper controls, it also means that developers are releasing security vulnerabilities more quickly, right? And organizations wanted to learn how to decrease risk by shipping software quickly. So the solution really is to stop treating information security as an afterthought. And organizations can achieve both speed and security by extending DevOps principles to information security teams and by adopting automation tools that build security into the development cycle. However, despite its name, DevSecOps is more than just about concerns of development, security, and operations teams. It's more a cultural philosophy whose goal is to lower barriers between all the teams that traditionally work in silos. That is the app teams, the dev teams, the security teams, and the operation teams. And again, though DevOps is well understood, its relevance is well understood, there are still some challenges that organizations face when it comes to accepting and implementing DevSecOps in their workflows. Almost every organization must comply with regulatory requirements depending on the nature of their business, the geography, or the industry that they operate in. And achieving compliance can be a huge challenge, right, for organizations and especially when they demand delivery speeds to be, applications to be delivered quickly. And there are multiple regulations that each organization needs to comply with. And decoding these complex requirements and implementing them within their DevOps workflows can be a daunting process. Another huge challenge is in adding security and compliance elements in DevSecOps, DevOps workflows is that operational development, security, and compliance teams, they all have their own language and corporate culture. Compliance teams know the regulatory policies and how to work with documents. Security teams understand vulnerabilities but aren't typically working with code. The developers, they work with code but not typically paying much attention to compliance and security requirements. And these teams therefore speak very different languages and have different objectives, which can cause misunderstandings and ambiguity. Another challenge is with increasing cloud adoption, organizations, they struggle to maintain security practices in the cloud. And we all are aware about the shared responsibility model for cloud services. So they need help distinguishing between the responsibilities of the cloud providers and themselves. And again, containerization, that has also definitely made developers' lives much easier. However, it has also introduced a set of fresh security and compliance challenges. And another thing is security and compliance teams, they grapple with remediating compliance issues found during compliance audits. There are no mechanism to remediate issues in an automated fashion. And the current security and compliance efforts, they kind of provide very limited visibility into the whole compliance posture of the organizations, right? And this causes a lot of undue risk to their existing environments. And We did a survey a year ago, and Progress Chef conducted a survey, and 71% of the respondents agreed that culture was the biggest barrier to DevSecOps progress. And culture has been an important talking point for organizations looking to improve everything from productivity to employee satisfaction. And when it came to DevSecOps, collaboration was perhaps the most important thing to get right, since the whole philosophy revolves around collaboration. Collaboration between developers, security teams, and operations teams. And yet, the study shows only 30% felt confident in the level of collaboration between security, development, and operations. So, what's the whole solution to this, right? A policy as code approach, it enables you to codify policies that govern security, compliance, all your governance policies across your application's lifecycle. And a policy enforces constraints and restrictions to prevent any unauthorized access to resources such as databases, storage services. So by codifying and integrating these policies into the whole software development lifecycle, you can enforce rules and constraints throughout the development cycle to prevent any non-conforming resources from being deployed. And using this whole policy as code approach, it definitely promotes collaboration across app dev, IT ops, security, and app compliance, because all have the access to the policy is a single source of truth, and everybody has access to the single source policy which are codified is like the common language across these teams, and they can be machine enforceable. So in this way, organizations can achieve continuous compliance. So that's a little bit about DevSecOps and some of the challenges that organizations face when it comes to implementing DevSecOps, and how a policy as code approach helps in achieving continuous compliance. Now I'll let Kurt talk a little bit about zero trust and its concepts, and what's the synergy between zero trust and DevSecOps, and how Chef helps in implementing zero trust within their DevSecOps workflows. Over to you, Kurt.
Well, thanks, Shua. I'm Kurt Young, a principal solutions engineer here at Progress. I've been with Progress for a couple of years now. I came over as part of the Kemp acquisition. And these days, I lead the technical marketing team supporting our infrastructure products, which include Loadmaster, Flowmon, What's Up Gold, and of course, Chef. So let me start talking a little bit about zero trust. It's based on this principle of never trust, always verify. That belief of a circle of trust just doesn't exist anymore, right? I've been in IT for a while now, and when I first got into the industry, I worked for a small startup out of New Jersey. And back then, we believed in the old castle and moat security model, right? Our perimeter was secure with our Cisco firewall, so we felt that there was very little to worry about, right? I mean, those days are long, long, long gone. Now, whether you're inside or outside of the corporate firewall, you're treated the same, right? You're untrusted. Organizations assume breach is going to occur, so you must continuously verify every user and device and lock down those applications and other resources the best you can. And today, with remote work and some cloud environments being left a little exposed, the chances of threat actors finding ways into that castle are that much easier. So using zero trust principles, such as least privileged access, right, where a user is given just enough access to complete a task and no more, along with network segmentation, right, to limit lateral movements throughout the network if an account or system is compromised. And as I mentioned before, that continuous verifying, right, when accessing resources throughout the environment. There is no one zero trust silver bullet, right, that will protect us from these threat actors. It's a combination of layers and layers of security to limit the impact when a breach occurs. It's really as simple as that, right? Each and every resource and or endpoint on the network really needs to be looked at, examined to see how zero trust principles can be applied to that to really help secure the environment as a whole. It's this never-ending effort. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency provides a zero trust model consisting of these 5 pillars and 3 capabilities. This model provides organizations with a roadmap and resources to achieve an optimal zero trust environment. Just quickly review them. You have identity, which is primarily focused on the enablement of things like multi-factor authentication, enterprise level identity access management across both on-prem and cloud, and of course the implementation of that least privileged access. On the network environment, segmentation of network traffic, right, to isolate critical data from other data, and encryption of traffic across the network as well. Device, establishing baseline device security protections, and continuously monitoring and validation of device security. Application workload, continuously authorizing access to applications. Integration with threat protection into application workflows, such as a web application firewall. And of course, application security testing throughout the development lifecycle. And data, protect data on devices, right, in applications, on the network, deploy mechanisms to detect data exfiltration, right, in having encryption of data at rest. Then capabilities, visibility and analytics. Tools that deliver security analytics, user behavior analytics, log and analyze all access events for anomalies, automate orchestration, automating security and network operation processes, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. In governance, right? Automate enforcement of data protection, automate discovery of networks, devices, and services, and automate remediation of unauthorized entities. Now, it's just a summary of these pillars and capabilities, which actually much of this could have been obtained from the Progress website with the capabilities within our infrastructure products like Chef and Loadmaster, Flowmon, and What's Up Gold, right? And each and every product that you're putting into your environment really should be checking one or more of these boxes, these capabilities, to add those layers of security to help protect the business. How to extend DevSecOps to zero trust, including compliance into the efforts to help secure the environment, right? Making that connection between all the teams to ensure that the organization is aware of the security and compliance posture, right? And how it can be leveraged to help protect the business further. I mean, it's one thing not having confidence in the organization's security posture, but much worse, not knowing what the security posture looks like. So without this, it's going to be a challenge with the adoption of DevSecOps. So adopting a continuous compliance approach is going to be your first step in getting your arms around all this. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how Chef can help connect the dots, right, between DevSecOps and zero trust. First, from a compliance standpoint, and Chef with its ability to help harden endpoint devices, and how we can leverage these capabilities with this existing solution to help protect those business critical applications that we need access to. Here we have a user logged into a device accessing some cloud resources, right? But before they get access to those resources, they must go through a smart proxy and a rules engine or an access control engine, right? So what does this engine do, right? It's responsible to do the necessary checks to ensure that this user can gain access to these resources based on all kinds of criteria, right? Number one, valid credentials, of course. Maybe the device needs to be domain joined. The user must be in a specific Active Directory group and so on. Some additional checks may be required, which leverages some external data sources, which looks deeper into the device to ensure that it's compliant, as an example. Right? As this device is managed by Chef, we're doing the configuration of the system with our cookbooks and recipes, as well as scanning the device using Chef Inspect with profiles. Now, these can be benchmark profiles downloaded from CIS, the Center of Internet Security, or custom profiles based on whatever criteria has been set by the security team within the organization. Now, the rules engine accesses this information to check things like when was the last time the cookbook or compliance scan was run against the system, right? Or whether the compliance scan was successful or passed, right? With this information, it can determine whether or not access should be permitted or denied to these cloud resources. This example, talking back about least privileged access, here we can actually restrict most access, right? Since Chef is doing things with code, infrastructure as code, policy as code, compliance as code, you have segments in your environment that can be human free, right? But by creating your Chef code and having it all stored in a secure artifact store, right? Even having that go through your CI/CD pipeline, right, to ensure the code is clean and ready for production. Now the systems in your production environment just need to pull these assets and run them to make the necessary updates. Right? Going back to those days long ago at that startup in New Jersey, nearly everything we did was manual, right? Very little automation. But with the capabilities and automation these days in products such as Chef, you have the ability to be somewhat hands-off and do it all by code. In reality, you can shut down SSH and remote desktop to these systems entirely, since no human really would need to have access to those systems directly. Also, just to add to the end here, is around the capabilities that are going to be delivered with this upcoming release of Chef Courier. It's going to provide a bunch more orchestration capabilities and control over the management of the infrastructure. So for those who have not looked into Chef Courier, we highly recommend that you visit chef.io. We have a bunch of content, some demo videos around the value Courier can bring to your organization. So be sure to check that out after the webinar today. So now we can just open it up to Q&A and see what we have for questions.